Right now, a civil jury is deliberating whether 4 Virginia Beach police officers were in the wrong when they shot and killed India Kager 3 years ago.
She was in a car with her child's father, Angelo Perry, when police were trying to take Perry into custody. They say he started shooting at them, so they returned fire.
Her family is suing the officers for $30 million in damages. 13 News Now reporter Jacqueline Lee is following this case live from the Virginia Beach courthouse tonight. Jacqueline.
Regina and David, the jury is still deliberating, and they've been deliberating for the past 4 hours now. Now, about 2 hours ago, the jury did come back. They said they were deadlocked. They could not come to a unanimous decision. So the judge then read them an Allen charge and said basically, go back, continue deliberating, which is what the jury is doing as we speak. Now, here's a recap of what happened in court today and what the jury is mulling over. The plaintiffs pled their case one last time before the jury. They're trying to prove that Virginia Beach police officers acted with gross negligence when they fatally shot Kager 3 years ago. On September 5th, 2015, Kager drove Angelo Perry, the father of her child, from Maryland to Virginia Beach. SWAT officers planned a takedown procedure against Perry. You see, Perry was a known violent criminal, guilty of robbery, homicide, and shootings. Officers believed Perry was about to murder a man later that night and wanted to stop him. Kager pulled into this 7-Eleven, and the SWAT team plan unfolded. Officers threw a flash grenade. Perry started shooting, and then officers shot back. Attorneys for Kager's family argue the officers knew there was an unidentified female in the car, but didn't bother to identify her and modify their plan of attack to protect her life. The plaintiffs also argue that police knew it was possible there was a third person sitting behind Kager in the car, but didn't confirm before launching the assault. That person was Kager and Perry's 4-month-old son. During the vehicle takedown, both Perry and Kager were killed. Attorney Edward Brady said the officers didn't use their judgment or discretion, and Kager died as a result. However, the defense argues that Perry is the one who put Kager in harm's way by firing at police officers first. Deputy City Attorney Christopher Boynton said the officers followed the safest plan of action, and when Perry fired, the officers had no other choice but to fire back. Now, as for what happens next, if the jury comes back and says they're still deadlocked, the judge can do several things. Number one, the judge can send him back and say, continue deliberating. The judge can also say, come back tomorrow. So we'll have updates for you guys coming up on 13 News Now at 11. Live in Virginia Beach, Jacqueline Lee, 13 News Now.